HR.
Shit.
Marvelou. The hit smash. Yeah. I'm in lust with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in lust with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm a pleasure seeker, super freaker, nookie beater, cookie eater, ski skeeter, passion heater, off the meter, diva keeper, feet sweeper, womanizer, mesmerizer, hormone jumper, nipple lumper, booty bumper, doggy humper, wild pumper, position swisher, text meshes, nudie picture, all over kisser, sex glisser, coochie spisher, come spasher, that tickle laughter, what I matter, I capture, I rapture, bad beauty, Cleopatra, snatch snatcher, purple matcher, no detacher, and lust. She a feisty biter, scratchy scratcher, sucky sucker, hot fucker, good lucker, kinky toucher, lushy lusher, plushy plusher, crushy crusher, squirty gusher, moany moaner, that want that, bony boner, all up on her, every day I wanna get up on her, sliding in her, sliding out her, cause I'm about it and don't doubt her. In love. She a bomb flower, precious sour with sex power. I'm willing to please any hour, any minute, all up in it, getting it. I'm in lust with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in lust with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in lust with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in lust with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with pleasure. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with lust that's very pleasing, not in the teasing, totally easing. Apple eyes, the sensations of butterflies, doing all our fantasize. My love high, symbolize for the climax, maximize on the rise. So surprised, I want a prize, glitterize, glimmerize, horny devil in disguise, clothes off, titties out, tongue between her open thighs, licky licking, dicky dicking, butt naked, nipple shit, aspirated, porno shit, slutty shit, smutty shit, cutty shit, nutty shit, I lusty shit, hardcore, love story, with her coming back for more, cause how I lure, she adore on that freaky shit, like a sex store, having orgasms, good lord. She know I got that big dick she be yearning for, obsessed for, craving for, asking for, looking for, needing for, greeting for, I selfish for, wanting more, for sure, that million more on some juicy shit without couture. I'm in lust with pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in lust with pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in lust with pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in lust with pleasure, 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 pleasure. I'm in love with pleasure, 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 pleasure.